Hello and welcome to another Wernerware video. I want to show you a small scripting project I started in order to help me relieve some manual tasks I've been doing to process the videos for my YouTube channel. I've been experimenting with using an HD video capture device rather than a software device through QuickTime. I like using the device because it allows me to record large volumes of video without having to go to the trouble of interfacing with QuickTime every time I want to stop and start my video. And I can record more time on this method. The downside, however, is that I have to transfer files using the USB thumb drive that I have inserted into the device. And furthermore, there's a more subtle problem with the output from this device. It actually took me a while to figure out what was going on with Adobe Premiere when my sound would get out of sync with my video. This has happened to me when I'd use footage off of my iPhone, but it was happening even more with this HD video capture output. Premiere users almost definitely know exactly what I'm talking about here, and it's the constant frame rate versus variable frame rate problem. And although it seems like Adobe added support for variable frame rate inputs, it has not been my experience that the software actually handles the variable frame rate well. So I have to use a tool called Handbrake to convert my videos before I can put them into my projects. It definitely does serve the purpose, but it's a manual process, and I found myself wondering if there was an easier way to do this. After all, software engineers automate this kind of process for building software all the time. So here's the general flow for when I'm recording and getting a video into Google Drive so that I can put it into Premiere. I've got my computer, which has an HDMI pass-through going to my HD video capture device, which records the video onto USB. I take that USB out and I put it into the machine, and I transfer it onto the machine and process it with Handbrake. That makes the videos into a CFR format, which you can see I've illustrated with a more consistent spacing between frames in the icon here. Then that resulting video is put into Google Drive, which conveniently has unlimited space for me, and I can process that raw video later and use it in Premiere because it's been transferred into a format that it can use. What I want my script to do is, when I plug that USB device in, I want it to automatically transfer the files and start Handbrake through the CLI so that I don't have to do any of those steps. The first thing for me to do was to download the Handbrake CLI. As you can see, I accidentally downloaded it twice, but I'll go ahead and delete one of them. Then I need to go ahead and figure out the best place to install the CLI. I've opened up the bin folder in my Finder window, and I'll just drag the CLI right in. And since my bin folder is already on my path variable, I can go ahead and test it in the command line, and it should already be there. Now I'm going to look up the documentation on how I want to invoke the CLI in order to do my task. So having searched through the documentation, I'm going to do a test run on a file just straight with the CLI so that I can see it run and know that it's processing the way I expect it to. I've got a whole pile of unprocessed Rust videos right here. So I'll just take the name and put it right into the command that I think is going to get the job done. Thankfully, the Handbrake CLI seems fairly well designed, and the number of arguments required is fairly minimal. It's Handbrake CLI-I, and then the file name, and then -o, and the file output, and then --CFR. So it looks like, having specified those 3 valid inputs, we now need to wait a pretty long time for it to process a video of any significant size. I'll go ahead and fast forward us through that. While I waited, I decided to do a little research on how I was going to detect the USB drive being inserted into the machine. I saw a few potential ways to do this, but I eventually settled on FSWatch. FSWatch is available by brew, so you can just say brew install FSWatch. And a quick check shows that FSWatch is available in the command line. As a quick test, I decided to watch the temp folder and then cat something out to a file into that folder and see what happened. I go back to the tab where I had set the watch command, and now you see the path to the new file that I just put in the temp folder. This file and all the output from FSWatch are from standard out, which means that they can be piped into other applications. After a little experimentation, I discovered that I could attach FSWatch to the volumes directory and watch as files came in through the various volumes attached to my computer. Here you can see that the Google Drive volume is quite busy. I have named my USB drive Media in all caps, and I plug it in to see what happens when I'm watching the volumes like this. And sure enough, the file path pops up a few seconds after I plug in the USB drive. With that, my attention turns to how I'm going to designate the file path where I want the files to go when I've taken them off the drive. Eventually, I do settle on the solution in this Stack Overflow page. Before I did so, I came across the same solution on this website. I did a quick copy-paste into the command line to make sure that it works. And just like the FSWatch example, once I've pasted in the command and let it go through with its action, it puts out the name of the file and the path to it. And in order to suit my purposes for this script, I'm going to go ahead and remove the extension filters that are on it. And I'm also going to go ahead and make the path type that this dialog opens into folder instead of file. I'm going to hit enter in order to give it a test. And I'm going to navigate to a folder and get my results as desired. Now I can take this command and save it for later when I want to put it in my script. So now that I've got a few pieces of the script that I want, it's time to get stuff into version control and into a project that I can start testing and doing my workflow with in order to make sure that things are fitting together. I started this IntelliJ project so I could get syntax highlighting and other assistive features so that my development experience was smoother. I had originally envisioned copying the files directly to the Google Drive folder, but then I started to realize that it would be hard to figure out which files needed to be processed. Instead, I decided to copy to a temp folder, which I would mark with the date so that it would be unique, and then in a subsequent step process those files in that folder and transfer them over to the final destination. So that's where I'm going to leave this video. We still have a lot of work left to do. First, I haven't even integrated the Handbrake CLI piece yet. That will be necessary to have a minimum viable product. Second, I have to add sounds or something to let me know when things are done in the app. In other words, I need to know when it's done copying and when it's done processing the videos. And then finally, for a good product, I will have to anticipate and handle failure scenarios. That means if the copy gets stuck, I would like for my videos not to get deleted off of the drive that I stuck in, and various other potential scenarios that could happen. So for now, I'm going to put this stuff up in GitHub, and I'll see you next time.